In a moment of anger, I had to walk home because I couldn't call a taxi or pay for the bus. My mother easily caught up with me by driving halfway. Before I could fully open the car window, her angry voice had already come through. Nightingale, why are you so thoughtless? Do you even have the courtesy to leave your mom? I waited for you from 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon. I looked at him calmly. I had no money, you only assisted with medical expenses. I'm very hungry and can't buy food. I need to go home first. Seemingly surprised, he paused briefly upon hearing me before turning away to let me in the car. I obediently got in the car and noticed a slight twist in the front seat, briefly feeling guilty for not buying you a gift, but not upset with my parents for such a minor issue. I calmly looked at his words, then focused on the cake. It's my sister's favorite brand and flavor. Looks like he did well today. He is your gift. Almost exploding, he took a deep breath, then met my innocent gaze in the rearview mirror. No past grudges or anger, just calmly recounting the incident. Xiaoying seemed unsure and called out to me. I just forced a smile. I've gone home. You should have already told Dad about what happened at the hospital during the day. On the table, he rarely showed determination, advising him to be less hasty in the future. After Hoshi finished speaking, he said in a lecturing tone, this is Mom and Dad's fault. Xiaoying, don't be angry. They will change in the future. His voice hinted guilt, but the reason for my illness went unmentioned from start to finish, left unaddressed by them. Once, I might have felt wronged about this, but now I just need more study time. No need to argue with irrelevant people. No, my calm voice, trivial people and matters are not worth my anger. Eating slowly under their watchful eyes, I skipped preparing fruits and giving massages, then headed upstairs to exercise. Around 9, a knock on the door. Xiaoying, are you free? I chatted with my parents. His dad cautiously approached the door, but I stepped back, an unfamiliar response. Frowning at the physics questions below, I couldn't help but click my tongue. In the end, I politely refused and rejected them, but they persisted in insisting on talking to me. They thought I was angry due to my indifference, hoping to just coax me. Gradually, they noticed that I had changed and no longer made their favorite breakfast and tea every morning just to greet them. They used to say I was aloof, didn't know how to obey parents like Su Yao. But when I treated them well, they truly accepted. Just like now, he still instinctively reaches for the teacup when he sees me, even if it's empty. Despite brewing coffee and tea for them, they thought I was sulking. After trying to talk to me multiple times, which I refused, they eventually felt guilty. My absent-minded dad suddenly offered me a ride to school, and I didn't say no. Work is tight, didn't want to waste time on public transport. But Su Yao saw us getting on the car and started throwing tantrums, refusing to go to school, and was taken care of by our respective parents. The place I work is not on the way to our school. After picking up Su Yao a few times, they started complaining in front of me, indirectly. I no longer want to be as understanding and compromising as before, I just pretend not to notice. Over time, her gaze towards me grew increasingly unsatisfied. I no longer care about his opinion and don't need to please them anymore. After that, my life experienced an unprecedented feeling of freedom and relaxation. One day, Su Yao refused her mom's car and argued with her dad. He thought that if my mom stopped caring, my dad wouldn't either, and I'd have to walk to school. Surprisingly, my mom, instead of her usual self, remained silent, but her stern expression as she gestured for me to get in the car, caused Su Yao to look anxious, a sentiment I also felt. On the way to school that day, I sensed my mom's unease with my driving. Her visible nervousness surprised me when the muscle car owner stepped out. She rarely drives, but the accident made her a bit flustered due to her lack of experience. Sometimes, I aim to be very efficient without bothering Dad unnecessarily. Stepping out of the car, I called the insurance company on my phone and approached the rear-ended owner for negotiation. Through the process, he stood by, watching, with much left unsaid. Fortunately, familiar with each other in the village, my grandma and I often have inevitable arguments. The incident with the car doesn't need further explanation from me. I witnessed my mom's actions and she has earned my admiration since then. The initial dissatisfaction gradually turned into appreciation. That night, he voluntarily informed my dad about it, who then praised my handling of the matter. They generously praised, served, and incidentally asked about my recent school life. Without interest in replying, I simply moved the delicious dishes aside, eating my meal in silence. After seeing their unpleasant expressions, I calmly put down my chopsticks and headed upstairs for a review. Nevertheless, the distance did not discourage them. Instead, it sparked their interest in me. After discovering one of my strengths, they felt like they had unleashed a flood of curiosity and exploration towards me. Previously, they saw me as dull and boring, unwilling to spend much. My parents are famous, but I only see them on TV. Busy on war front lines discussing environmental dangers, they left me with my grandmother in the countryside. Later they adopted a colleague's daughter, kept her close, and settled their debts to me, making her their cherished family member without any barriers. But when they remembered me, I had already forgotten my feelings towards them after a high fever. I was sick for a while, not too severe. In fact, I told my parents at the time when I could crawl fast and asked if they could have a parent-teacher meeting. When we faced challenges, we happily set up a tent with Grandma and Mom, ready to capture the sunrise. Seeing me arrive, my cousin mentioned the race winner without specifying the method. He said, "In the movie, you haven't figured out their path yet. I can only get to the destination by walking. With my parents' support, you've been losing from the start." With the camera in hand, the parents stood behind her, overheard our conversation, and found out what had happened. Feeling embarrassed, they were ready to greet me for the sunrise, but I had already walked away without looking back, leaving him. Mom's angry voice was heard, asking why he couldn't understand like Yao Yao. He, like Yao Yao, knows how to be close to parents, so why sulk all day? How could we ignore her? Hearing this, I couldn't help but find it amusing that parents always say I never soften my attitude, but who can understand how to be close to them? However, over the past 15 years without them, I have changed. If they can't do it, how can one be close to them? Since no one's asked, how could I know? After getting home, I fell ill with a high fever, feeling dizzy and weak after catching a slight chill from the wind. Before fainting, I called an ambulance for help and then went into darkness. While unconscious, I revisited my childhood. When I was very young, I saw my parents on TV, and only on TV. They are well-known journalists and campus lovers who share common ideals. After graduation, leading various important news events for the common ideal. Later, they willingly decided to go to war zones abroad and live among war-torn refugees. Before they left, a photo was taken showing me as a baby, held by a gentle smiling couple, a happy family of 3. At that time, little did I know that it would be the last time I was embraced by my parents, a moment that filled my childhood self with regrets and made me wish I had met them earlier to experience the embrace that lingers as a cherished memory. Unfortunately, it didn't happen this time because I wasn't well off enough. I brought joy to my grandmother in the countryside who struggled with using the pager my parents left. She often walked with a cane to the town's post office miles away every month to see if there was a letter for us, grandmother and grandchild. When I got older, he took me along. Before leaving, I'd wear new clothes I rarely used and add 2 flowers to my black braid, as my grandmother told me. I thought my parents could understand me from letters. I wanted to dress up nicely to meet them, but never got any letters. Only when my Chinese teacher in 3rd grade asked me to write a letter to my mom did I realize letters go in one direction. My parents wouldn't suddenly show up at the post office to hear me discuss how much I miss them. Luckily, even without letters, television remains available. My parents have been overseas for 7 or 8 years without returning for the new year. Sometimes, they brought TV sets to grandma's house in their hometown. When a 45-inch color TV arrived at home, I came and Grandma warmly invited everyone to watch TV together. After setting up the antenna, the TV quickly caught the evening news. The anchor spoke briefly before the screen shifted to show a couple holding a microphone, their eyes shining. The parents on the news screen were describing the local situation during the war, urging society to help the innocent refugees. Seeing their worn faces, far older than in the photos, I stumbled towards the TV, waving my hand, but no response from Mom and Dad. Watching the news has been my unchanging hobby. The news is available every day. Even if they might not have me anymore, I can still dream that your parents will take me with them that night for adventures, holding me in their arms, rubbing my head, and calling me baby. Later, I entered junior high in the town as mobile phones were slowly getting popular. Yesterday after school, I found the old pager in my grandma's bedside cabinet, which hadn't been used for a long time. After recharging, my heart raced uncontrollably as I found the number with my parents' names on the notice. No one answered the call. The pager was long overdue. Later, I saved money for a long time, silently dialing the numbers representing my parents daily. On my birthday, I gave 10 yuan to the roadside store owner and used his phone to call that number. The phone rang for a long time. Just when I thought no one would answer, that gentle male voice from my dreams started to speak. Excitedly, I called out his name, letting him know I'm his child. He remained silent for a long time, seemingly forgetting about his baby back in his hometown. Once he began speaking, his voice seemed rushed. He told his child, "I'll call you later. Be good with Grandma." After he spoke, in his absence, I hung up without replying. I held the warm phone heated by my ears, feeling a bit lost in my heart. This was the first time I had a conversation with my father in my memory. A child's intuition is sharp. On that day, I realized something. My parents didn't miss me as much as I missed them. Since then, I couldn't help but wait for the news on TV, feeling less excited than before. I used to imagine being loved by my mom, but now I realize they see me as a stranger after being apart for so long.